What is up, everybody? Happy Friday to you. Well, the world is still crazy. Yes, it is. Yes, it is. And, obviously, we are all trying to navigate through it. Us reasonable people are trying to navigate through this crazy world. So recently, my Twitter account was locked. And I'm like, why is my Twitter account locked? And so Twitter claims that some of my comments towards or responses towards other people's posts was a violation of their rules. So, first of all, I believe in capital punishment. I believe that, if somebody harms or kills another person's, that should be their fate, right? And, my beliefs are not, I'm trying to look. My beliefs are not, far from, what the Bible says, right? So when you look at Leviticus 24:19 through 20, it says, and a man who injures, let me move over, his countrymen, right? His fellow man, right? As he has done, so it shall be done to him. Namely, fracture under for fracture, eye for eye, tooth for under tooth, just as another person has received injury from him, so it will be given to him. So if you are a person who disrespects the life of others for whatever angry reason you may have, you deserve the same fate. And I truly believe in that. I am a believer in capital punishment because I don't believe that, number one, taxpayers should be funding the livelihood of someone who has taken the life of other people. I don't think that should be the taxpayer's responsibility to fund criminals, right? Who are essentially turned into slaves of the system in some way. I don't think that's a taxpayer's responsibility. It's like if this person is a murderer, right? They should experience the same fate after a fair trial, and if proven guilty, right, by a reasonable doubt. We're in an age of cameras now. We're a surveillance state. You cannot walk anywhere in any major metropolis and not see cameras everywhere, right? And it started with the traffic cams, right? But we already knew where that was going to lead. Traffic cams, street cams. We are a surveillance nation, whether a lot of people concede to that or not. And a lot of these surveillance systems have gotten really sophisticated with AI, right? Where they can basically target us wherever we go. That's why it's like, for me, just be out in the open. Like, some people are like, oh God, I'm going to go off the grid and I'm going to hide. And it's like, actually, the safest place to be is out in the open, right? Because if you're dealing with a structure of tyranny that wants to conceal itself, you might as well let it reveal itself by the things that they unjustly do in the open to people without really a lot of justification. So anyways, getting back to Twitter though, I did a video earlier and I just decided to do this one. But I was talking about how online algorithms are really biased and they're not really equitable, right? Same people crying about equity and inclusion are the very ones driving exclusion and muffling people's voice because they believe that freedom of speech does not mean freedom of reach. And if you are speaking on truths that are contradictory to the lies that they want people in society to believe, then obviously you are a voice that they don't want to be heard. And so I realized that a lot of my content online is censored, stifled, algorithmically pushed back, right? Because I think they have a target on people's IP address, their names, right? So, all of these algorithms are talking to each other, right? It's machine learning, right? And that's why they have to stifle speech, right? Because obviously, with machine learning, it's picking up a lot of stuff that is online, right? And so, as the machine is learning and you're programming it to just go out in the internet and fish for all kinds of thinking, right? Eventually the machine is going to learn to think about the most common sense, right? It's always going to get back to common sense. And that is why they're trying to do everything that they can to stifle common sense in society's common sense thought, right? Middle of the road. That's why you see like Democrat and Republican think tanks, right? These are the main ones being pushed, right? These are the algorithms are pushing these people up. They have enough money to make sure that they're pushed up in the algorithm so that people believe that there is a broader thought on what they're pushing than it really is. And I think that if you want to find a really good example of this, like I said, the music industry, right? Because the music industry, you would have all these artists and the fans are like, this artist is decent, but I don't understand how this artist is out streaming this particular artist, right? And a lot of times it's because they're not. They, depending on the record label, they have enough money to, push, different artists in the algorithms by means of different bots, right? Now, supposedly Twitter recently just got rid of like 100, tens of millions of bot accounts from their platform, and they still are contending with fake bot platforms. And the reason why this is a contention for platforms like Twitter is because you have a lot of artists on Twitter, right? And again, they are there for different purposes, different reasons, right? You have this one agency who hires a bunch of bloggers to try to push certain artists, right? You have this agency who pays people to just click on, different video clips and streams to make it seem like artists are, really have an interest that is not really organically there. And we see the organic interest when we look at the pure sales, okay? Like for example, people can say Nicki Minaj is a flop. She's a flop. She's not selling. She's not this. But then when she goes and sells out concerts, it's undeniable. When she goes and partner with different brands and she's actually selling out the merchandise, it's undeniable. Her pure sales speaks. Pure sales are king. That's why a lot of people are manipulated into believing that an artist is more popular than what they are, because the streams are being manipulated, right? And it's not until you go out and look at the pure sales that you're like, this person isn't as popular as we are being made to believe. And that's just to say that when it comes to these online platforms, you have a lot of voices, a lot of people who are being propped up. And a lot of these people don't make sense. They're double talkers. They don't have a strong foundation in anything. They'll wear the badge of I went to Harvard, or I have this degree, or I wrote this book, but they're talking, like an idiot, right? And that's why I am not impressed with anybody who has some high level of degree from some place and wrote 1,000 books, right, on some nonsense just to say that they are credible, right? I will take a Joe Schmo who could just sit back and understand the patterns of things, opinions, and views quicker than I would people like that, because we've seen how some of these so-called credible people can be paid to just spread lies. I was debating somebody online on Facebook, and he was talking about Neil deGrasse, whatever that guy's name is, and I can't stand that dude. He's goofy as hell. And anytime you're supposed to be a credible scientist and you don't have the credibility or the balls to just talk about basic human biology in the context of what is right for the public to be thinking about any given topic as related to science or human biology, you have lost me. You have lost me, right? So, but people wear certain things as a badge of relevancy so that people can believe them. And really, it's like these people are idiots. They're dumb. And like I said, I would believe somebody who can understand the pattern facts of things, but quicker than I would believe some of these paid propaganda credible people. But, off that, Twitter, seems to my problem with algorithms, especially, on platforms like Twitter, who claim to be free speech, is that they are working with algorithmic type of AI content moderation, or they're working with beta people who can't stand an opposing viewpoint, right? And a lot of these NGOs have bots on platforms like Twitter so that they can police thought and content, so that they can start reporting people that, don't, who are expressing viewpoints that they don't want to be expressed. And so I see this. And so I noticed that I posted a podcast segment from Tariq Nasheed. And obviously I don't agree with everything Tariq Nasheed says. I agree with some things, but I don't agree with everything. I don't agree with everything that anybody says, right? And I don't think intelligent people should, because there's always disagreeable points in anything. But, he does make a lot of great points when it comes to the plight of foundational Black Americans. And so Tariq was posting commentary about DJ Vlad and how he went after that professor at Princeton, or former professor at Princeton, because she told him to stay out of Black people conversations, right? And when it comes to hip hop and the subject matter of certain things that are being discussed, sometimes it is valuable for non-Black people just not to insert themselves. A lot of times they're not going to understand the root, foundations of a lot of the conversations that are being had. Some of them have surface level ideas about Black people. Some of them have not even in-depthly studied Black people. Even if they've been around Black people, they really don't understand Black culture in-depthly. There are many of them who will conflate Black-looking immigrants with Black Americans. And culturally, again, we are not the same people. We may look alike, but we're not the same people. It's really kind of like when the Jews say that they're not white people. There are many Jewish people who are like, oh, no, we're not white people. We're not Europeans. And it's like, okay, whatever, but y'all look alike. And Whoopi was not wrong when she said the Holocaust was not about race, because you were kind of contending with people that look the same. A lot of people who converted to Judaism, who, really at the bloodline level would be really closely, very much related, more so related than somebody who's Middle Eastern. And that's just my opinion, right? But I think that if you dig into the history and really got deep in things, it would be yours as well. But off of that, they're trying to make all kinds of things anti-Semitic, anti-hate speech, right? Because I feel like they're doing a lot to cover over lies and manipulations, and they're using the legal system, like historically, to do that. And it's just disgusting to me. And I think it's more revealing to some of the, to the validity of things that are deemed tropes than some of these people want to admit. But off that, algorithmically, I think that platforms like Twitter, they, just by the design of, money, they cannot be free speech in a climate like this. They can't. Elon Musk knows that. He's a double talker, right? But he knows that he can't be totally free speech, because if he was totally free speech, like, he would understand that even hate speech is free speech. Hate speech falls under the umbrella of free speech, whether people don't like it or not. hate speech is free speech, right? If you're a white person and you say I can't stand black people, that may seem very biased. Can't really say it's hateful, right? Because do you wish harm to black people? Now, if you say I can't stand black people to the point where I wish harm to black people, now that is hate speech because that's borderlining violence, right? But Twitter's algorithm doesn't even know what violent speech is. And even in the context of conversations, it doesn't know how to take a whole thread of conversation and understand the context of a comment. So if I'm looking at a man who is violently running over other people and killing them, and I say that he deserves to be killed, well, then that is considered a hate speech violation on Twitter because their algorithms or the people who are moderating are not intelligent enough to read the entire context. And that's a problem with society today. People are so, narrow-minded that they don't understand how to read something and even attempt to get the full context of what is being said. They are more emotionally driven instead of logically driven, and they're quick to run a label on something without even inquiring, hey, what is the context of this? Because so many people are indoctrinated into ignorance that they just read something and automatically react. Right? So, I'll give you an example. I wrote, in response to the Air Force senior airman that was shot to death, the black man, 23 years old, because police went to the wrong door. Here we go again. I swear they need to inflame black people. So they're going to create all kinds of narratives. So here we go again, went to the wrong door, right? Shot this man, right? Because he was hearing somebody bang on his door. Apparently, he looked through the peephole, couldn't see anybody, right? So if you're banging on the door and you're the cops, you need to be within the sight hole so that people know that you are cops banging on their door, right? But he didn't see anybody. And then before he knew it, right, so obviously he grabbed his firearm because we have a Second Amendment in this nation that you can defend your household if someone is going to be an imminent harm to it and enters it, right? But so he grabbed his firearm not knowing what the hell was going on. And so obviously when the cops burst through the door, right, they just see a black man with a firearm and shot him to death, right? And the reason why I focus on this is because I've seen several videos where there have been white men, right, surrounded by cops who were fully armed, acting like they were erratic and irrational, and they're sitting up there negotiating with this guy, hey, just guy, blah, 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 doing everything they can not to kill that white man. So, when people want to get in their feelings, when I say poorly trained and supremacist cops are a threat to society, right? All the little white supremacist inclined people want to jump on and internalize the very word supremacy to white people and race. First of all, supremacy comes in many forms, right? There's power supremacy, right? Some people wear the badge of a cop as almost like a power supremacy. They were losers in high school, got their ass beat sometime, bullied, and they decided to become a cop so that they can pay back their bullies in some kind of way. But, and we got to be realistic about that. There are a lot of beta personality people who are cops, and they shouldn't be, because they're emotionally and mentally irrational, and they're riddled with biases that makes any encounter more of a volatile encounter just by default, right? So when you're dealing with man versus man, right, white cop versus black suspect or whatever, of course, there may be some man-to-man combat. It shouldn't be, but let's just face it, it is. And cops need to understand how to rationalize how to deal with those situations. They need to understand what an imminent threat is and what is not an imminent threat. And some of these cops don't know that. And we're not going to act like They don't, right? But here are all the passionately ignorant white guys coming on trying to be all touchy because their white fragility has been attacked by me saying that poorly trained and supremacist cops are a threat to society, right? And here's one guy, poorly trained cops are a threat to everyone. And it's like, what does society mean to you? Right? See, they're internalizing it to mean white cops, but I never put a race on what types of cops. I said poorly trained and supremacist cops. There are black supremacist cops, right? Those Uncle Ruckus cops, right? Those totally exist. So, but these people read to react. They don't read to comprehend. They don't read to try to get context. And that's the problem with society today. People are so quick to read 140 characters and they can't comprehend deeper meaning or even bring themselves to have enough self-control and emotional intelligence to at least ask a question to gain deeper meaning before they go drawing conclusions and getting in their feelings. It's like, this is how absurd people in society are, right? And, to the point of the bots, right? A lot of these bots, right? These are AI programmed, right? And they are AI programmed specific. Okay, so some of these bots are absolutely programmed to fuel racial tensions. So sometimes when you're going back and forth with a bot because it really can't intelligently hang with the conversation, right? And this is the danger of AI. AI can actually destroy societies because every time you have artificial intelligence actually fueling conflicts in society, and that is a problem. And these things do not have minds of their own. AIs will never have minds of their own. AI is always going to be driven by human mindset, human behaviors, because that is what it's emulating. So they're not going to have a mind of their own. They are programmed. I actually talk to a guy who creates AI libraries, and I know how they work. You have to feed them, right? So all these people, one day they're going to have a mind of their own. No, they're not. No, they're not. No, they're not. The mind of their own really will come from the Satanists who are trying to infuse their demonic gods through incantations and CERN and all kinds of God particle stuff with the technology, right? Because obviously the demons are trying to materialize themselves in some way, because after the days of Noah, if you read the book of Enoch, you will know that after those times, fallen angels could not take the form of men. Okay? That's why when people are like, there's Nephilim. No, they are not. All right? There are no Nephilim running the earth. Goliath was not a Nephilim, right? When you look at the Philistines, right, they were abnormally tall people, right? The average height of a Philistine was between 7 and 9 feet, which was substantially taller than your average person. I mean, all you got to do is, when you think of Goliath, in the context of a David, just think about Shaq next to Kevin Hart, right? But anyways, you guys, the world is interesting. It is crazy. And, I don't have hate in my heart for anybody. I want to make that very clear. I don't have hate in my heart for anyone. I wish everyone will come to rationality, common sense, get back to the Abrahamic faith, and really understand what that faith is saying, and just divorce everything that you know and really relearn everything from a holistic and mature way and conscious way. And you'll realize that a lot of this stuff is lies and manipulation. And when you do get out of the matrix, you start to see it. And, once you get out of the matrix, obviously you are a de factor, right? And they're going to do everything that they can to make sure that you don't wake anybody else up. So I have been attacked across platforms, deplatformed, still deplatformed from LinkedIn, which is supposed to be the career site. So now we see where the inequity comes from. If you don't play ball with their logics of ignorance, then you will be deplatformed, and you're basically having to use less resources to either build or promote your art or business. So think about that. As you are buying into these platforms, these people are agents of stifling your speech, your expression, and your reach. So, anyways, you guys, you have a wonderful, wonderful day. I think that my Twitter restriction should be over soon. I'm not completely locked out of my account. It's just in a read only, right? As they reconcile that, when people are talking about capital punishment, that people deserve to die for their sins, an eye for an eye, we're not talking, in general. We're talking very person specific, and even down to the truth and realities, right? Like this one guy, he was, on that same post, he was talking about why are your people, blah, 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 talking about Black people in general. And I'm like, here's the thing. The mainstream media does not promote, poverty line behaviors of whites for a reason, because they're really trying to reserve that ignorance for Black people. And so I told them, be happy that the Zionist media doesn't, target overly projecting ignorant white people, right? Because it gives people like him, the green light to think that all Black people are ignorant, because that is what he is seeing in these projections. So, anyways, you guys, you have a wonderful, wonderful, wonderful weekend. Happy Sabbath to those who celebrate Saturday sundown, Friday sundown to Saturday sundown. Reflect on the word. I said that I was going to do a video on why I think America is the second beast, but I ended up having a late meeting, and I want to make sure that, I have some really good cohesive thoughts for that video too. So I will probably drop it tomorrow, and look out for that. I think I'm going to do it tomorrow, because I'll be more chill and relaxed, and I'll be digging into the Word of God anyway. So you guys have a wonderful, wonderful weekend, like I said. And if you like this content, subscribe, share. I am being suppressed everywhere, but I'm pretty middle of the road. So I don't have any commitment to any movement, ideas. I'm just going to speak about pattern, things that I see, and let you guys decide if you see the same patterns or not. So have a good day. Bye.